Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of the Evolution Podcast. You're going to have to wait through the whole thing to figure out what I have to say about why it's a special episode, besides for having an amazing guest, Michelle Steiner, with us today. I am Brandon Kramer, your holistic health and longevity coach.
And I'm Christina Joy. I'm a business operations consultant.
And today we make up the Evolution Podcast. And we are joined by Michelle Steiner. How are you, Michelle?
I am great. How are you?
Doing really well. I'm always looking forward to having conversations with
Good.
everyday superheroes, as I call our guests. And you're no different from, I met you in, I believe, a Facebook group. I'm in a bunch of them. And we
Yes.
got to talking a little bit. And you have a story that really drew close to my heart because I've had a bunch of concussions, mental health issues, was told and thought myself that I wasn't able to do certain things in life, things that I was then able to do. So your story is really resonated with me. Will you tell me about your background a little bit?
Sure, I would be happy to. I was diagnosed with having a learning disability in kindergarten. And very early on in my life, I really struggled with learning and I had difficulties with making friends and I was bullied. And then, but the one thing that really was difficult too was I had a lot of people telling me there were things I couldn't do. I had a learning support teacher who didn't think I could go to college because of my difficulties with math. I had a psychiatrist who told me that I would not be able, most likely, go beyond community college. I even faced more stigma at community college. I had people telling me that I would have limited job choices. Disability accommodations were really considered cheating, and there was a stigma that surrounded them. So my staff and students, I can remember asking for having a calculator in a math class. And the professor said, "Oh no, we use our brains in this class, not calculators." And I had people that didn't think I was going to get published or even find somebody with having a disability. And I was able to do all those things and more.
I love that so much. You said so many things that I want to ask questions about right now.
Okay.
But okay, I'm gonna skip right forward to publishing. What what's that about? What are you publishing?
I have been published on several in some magazines and some online platforms. I also have some stories in some anthologies. My first article was published on The Mighty years ago, and I also have a blog called Michelle's Mission where I write about my life with a learning disability. And I've had other places that have published me with stories. My most recent one was on Sunday. It was a story called Peonies from Heaven, and that was on um, memory lane with Start to Write, and it was there's a really amazing story when I got married that has to do with that. It has to do with my grandfather who loved to garden, and that was one of those things. And I also have stories published in a few anthologies myself as well.
Wow. I mean, that is extensive. That's amazing. I mean, I would love to be published in even a little bit of that, that's
Right.
phenomenal. So tell us about your blog. What happens in your blog?
In my blog, I write about my life with having a learning disability, and I do a lot of nature analogies. As you can tell, I love butterflies and I love flowers. So sometimes I might talk about my life or just accepting my disability has been like a transformation process, like the butterflies. Or sometimes I might talk about how it might be like a flower that's unfolding. Or I might even talk about just some of the things that I might use with adaptive equipment to be able to live and to be able to do other things. It just really depends on that. But I rely a lot on the nature ones because I think that that really is my connection. And I also feature my photography on there because I'm not able to drive. So on my walks, I get a chance to notice details that other people miss while they're behind the wheel of a car. And I get to stop and smell the roses and take pictures of flowers and just other things that I see. And I get to post them on my blog. And I also have had them featured in magazines as well.
Wow, that's amazing. I love
Thank
that. And
you.
I love that you brought up the, you know, you're not, you don't drive. And so the joy in that is
Mhm.
it's actually seeing what's around you. You can see it, you can smell it. Because
Yep.
I've had like times in my life where I was only a walker or only a bike rider. And in those
Hmm.
times, the thing that jumped out at me a lot was that, wow, I can actually like smell this road different, you know? And it was such a fun experience. Sometimes fun, sometimes not, but like, you know,
Here, yep.
smells and sights and the way it feels around you, the energy. So that's a really cool thing you brought up. That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I have so much to unpack here. So, Michelle, you really are like brimming with confidence, and you seem so like that you've really embraced your situation, your life. I'm kind of the brain health guy, so I'm looking at this as an aspect of like you really embraced things that you didn't you didn't know were going to be hurdles, but were kind of hurdles your whole life. And you were told that you weren't ever going to jump those hurdles. And you can see that just in like your face and the way you talk and like how you smile. And it's so cool, right? Um, have you always had that confidence? Like I've also had a lot of negative stuff that I listened to and went down years of like having no self-esteem, right? Like, have you always
Right.
had that confidence? What were moments where you had to like build it or break through maybe low self-esteem?
I think when I was younger, I did not have a lot of confidence, especially when I was in elementary school and right after I got diagnosed, because I just remember being that young child and thinking my life's always going to be difficult. And if I could just get rid of the disability, it would be better. And there's so much things I'm not going to be able to do. And I didn't think that there was anything I was good at until my dad found a story about a dinosaur that I wrote in second or third grade and said, Michelle wrote this and it's really good. And hearing that really boosted my self-esteem because I didn't think I was good at anything up until that point. And reading and writing really became my world. And I really struggled, I think, with that when I was in high school. Even though my grades were improving, I was making honor roll. I had an idea of what I wanted to do in the future, but I was still really afraid. I didn't think I could do it. But I went ahead and I did that afraid. And then at college, especially community college, I really struggled too. I was a really negative person. I listened to a lot of what people were telling me I couldn't do. And I still just went forward scared, not confident, thinking somebody else can do this a lot better than I can do it. But I was really just making those going forward with what I thought was best. And to my surprise, there were things I was good at. And I can remember thinking, well, if I had my disability, if it just went away, I would be happy and I would have all the success in life. And when I graduated with uh, my bachelor's degree, my disability didn't go away, but I started to shift my confidence because I knew that I had success. And I thought to myself, I can go out and I can make a difference with having one. And I that also led to eventually thinking of the things that I like to do and that I enjoy doing. Because when I engage in activities I like, such as reading or writing, I don't feel like I have a disability or even photography. I feel empowered, I feel happy. But if you put me in front of some things that are really frustrating, like math, then I'm not going to be so happy. And it's not that I can totally obliterate, totally avoid that in my life, but it's one of those things in life that I can only control what I can. There's certain things that I can that are in my control, and that's how I react to situations, how I respond. And I can't control what somebody else might think, or I can't have no power over the things I can't do. But there are things in my life that I can, and I try to really engage in those activities to fill my cup in life.
I love that. I have a question about this though.
Uh-huh.
I am curious if you have found in this learning disability that it's actually a superpower in
Yeah,
any
that's what I
way.
was going to say.
Hmm. Yes, I have found that to be a superpower, especially when I'm dealing with my students, because I work with middle school age students, and a lot of times it's like hearing a recording of myself at that age. I hate having my disability. I wish I didn't have it. And I get to be that person that goes in and says, "Oh, I understand what that's like." And for most of them, I can't go into everybody's experience, but I get that chance to also go in and say, you are smart. And I get to show them how to advocate. And I can remember I had a student that in particular, all the kids know, do not ask me for help with math, or they'll soon find out, or the staff does. And there was a classroom where I was still put in a position where they expected me to help with math, and I couldn't do it. And I was just looking to the sky thinking, why am I here? What is going on? And somebody said, this student is crying. And I went over and I got on eye level with the student. And I told that student, I said, I understand he couldn't do the math. And I said, I know how hard it is and I can't help you with the math, but I want you to let me know when you are struggling so I can get you the resources that you need. And one of the greatest joys is that student was no longer crying in class. He was raising his hand, asking for questions. And I just remember hearing, that's why I was here that day. It wasn't because I was to teach somebody math, but it was to help that child. And I think it's having that, I really use that as that superpower that I know what it's like and I can guide other people and give that hope that they can go out and achieve their dreams as well. I definitely see it as a superpower when I'm on my walks and I get that chance to see details that other people miss. And I just think that those are some things because of having a disability. I would be really sad if I didn't have those in my life.
It really makes me wonder, we name so many things a disability.
No, I'm
And I
all in this
can't
too right now.
stand it, honestly, because it's like we are all different, right? And I see
Right.
so much beauty in what you're share. I mean, like I'm all teary-eyed. Yeah, I have chills because I'm like, think about all these kids that you are changing their trajectory just by believing in them the way that you do. And imagine if you had you in middle school. I mean, you're just it's beautiful. And I commend you on all of this. This is awesome.
Thank you.
I
You're
I have
welcome.
a bit of a challenge. I wouldn't be me if I didn't. I have a bit of a challenge. So
Okay.
I feel like you identify with having a specific disability, right? And
Mhm.
obviously with you, it's numbers and math. We talked concussions earlier. I cannot do math in my head. My 10-year-old can like rattle stuff off. I need like a calculator for everything. And that's just like a hurdle that I know, like grab me a calculator. I can obviously understand from there. I don't even like try to do it in my head. But I don't think I would identify that, and I'm super ADHD and all kinds of other stuff. But I don't identify that as disabilities. Those are actually the abilities with an I have to function. Like those are my abilities. Like I have to function within those. My math abilities, not that great, but I have abilities to research, figure shit out, do what I got to do. Those are abilities that I do have. So I see you having less disability and a whole ton of abilities. Like you're smart, like everything you labeled off earlier that you do, you're published, you're writing, you're taking photos, you're helping children, you're really spreading the message and advocating was the word you used earlier, which is just really special. I think you have millions of abilities, yet you're identifying with maybe like a disability, where that could just be something you have to be a little bit more able to adapt and learn. I don't know. That's just my
Right.
take. My take.
Exact. Right. Exactly. We're all getting to the same place. It just I might need a different way to do that. And I think that I can also see this, especially when we're out in public, like with my visual perception. I cannot figure out escalators, when to step on, when to step off. But I can use an elevator or I can use stairs, and I'm getting to the same place, the same store I want to go to. It's just might be a different method for that. And I think that's the biggest thing that we found is we're all going there. There's that goal. I just might need to do something different with that. So I mean, and yep.
I like that. And as the father of a daughter who's on the spectrum, like she's amazing. Right? Like
Hmm.
for context, she's a twin, and they're going to be 10 in December. And her brother can like read, write,
Hmm.
really good at math,
Yep.
all this stuff. She isn't as motivated for things like math and reading. she's super behind on reading. It says we're going to homeschool this year and try a different approach. We do have separate homes, so it's going to be quite the tactical adventure. But we're going to try that approach for her reading and other schooling aspects, especially social for her. But I think I'm getting to a point. Oh, here we go, Christina. So my point though is like the way she identifies with like she doesn't know how to read and like she has that like, oh, I don't want to. But then you give her like a pen and a paper and she creates these things. She can take a hot glue gun and like do miraculous stuff with it. It's not. But
Nice.
for other aspects, it's really hard to get her to like want to do those things. And we think she can. We just think she doesn't give as much oomph because it gives her a little leverage. So my question is like the identity between I have a disability and this is what's holding me back, and kind of utilizing that to, you know, back off a little bit from things maybe you don't want to do.
You're right, because sometimes we are geared towards things that might be hard that we don't go into. I mean, and as a child, though, we do have, with education, it's really important that we do give our kids those choices and we try multiple different approaches with that too.
Yeah.
But when they're older, that is their decision that they're going to make, how they use those tools and that information. I had a student that asked me, he really struggled with reading. He said, when am I ever going to use this in the future? And I said, I was very honest. I said, you may not use this in the future as an adult. That'll be your choice, whether you want to use this or the extent that you're going to. But I said, right now, we need to work on getting this completed and we need to do this now. And that I think a lot of times those kids have that respect with that because I don't lie to them. I don't try to say, oh, you're going to need this in the future for that because they might not decide that they need that. But we do have to find a way to be able to work around things to be able to do that. It doesn't entirely go away, but we can find ways to be able to work around that and we can make that decision. And I think there's also a lot of choices too. And I think that is the key thing. My handwriting is not great. And I can remember people always saying, oh, you're going to need to know, have to be neat if you want to get published. I've never had an editor that has asked for a handwritten rough draft, thank goodness. I've never have had, people that have just wanted that in the publishing world. I also know once we learned how to type, that was a game changer for me. I could finally, people knew what I wanted to say, and there wasn't that question of, what does this mean? And there's even voice to text software that I sometimes use now too, that's helpful. And I can't tell time on an analog clock, so I do a digital watch. I can read a book. I love to read books that are hardback or like print, but there's also ways you can do that. There's on my iPad, I have the Kindle app where I can download books that I can read and I can adjust the fonts, which is helpful. And I can also use an audiobook. And sometimes I love to go to the gym and then I have an audiobook where I can listen to that. So I think that there's different ways. And when we go in and we teach children, we need to maybe start the traditional route, maybe do some modifications, some accommodations if they need that. And then we can start looking into certain things that if that's not working, maybe offer a different way to approach that and to really think what does work and what happens. And then we give those tools, and then when they're adults, they decide how they're going to use them.
Wow. Man, I didn't know I needed you on as a guest as much as I did. Holy cow.
Yeah, sorry.
So no, it's awesome because we're going through a lot of this with my daughter, right? And
Right.
like we're coming up with ways to teach her things. And for us, like we had a situation where a teacher, I don't even know which one, said to my daughter, like, oh, you're going into fourth grade and you can't read and write yet. And that kind of affected her. And her older brother is like, he was on protection mode when he heard this. So he told me. And it got us to thinking, and me and Allie were talking about it, my girlfriend. And she said, the girl is like a wizard and like a great artist, like better than she should be at her age. Teach her how to do calligraphy. Like teach her how to do to draw her like letters really, really nice.
Yeah.
She already loves art. So now have her do her letters. Beautiful. Then she learns how to write her letters. And I was like, that's brilliant. So we're actually trying that right now. Where we're like, hey,
Yeah,
why don't you just like make these shapes, these letters really cool? And then she's been doing that. She's going to start doing that. So yeah,
that,
different ways to approach it, right? That means
yeah,
something to them.
that's awesome. That is great.
Yeah, what a great idea too. Like bring
Mhm.
the art into the writing so that the writing isn't such a
Yeah.
mundane task. Like now it turns into something you can be passionate about, something that's beautiful, something you make, something you
Yeah.
create. I love that. That's such a cool thing.
Very nice.
Holly's a really good artist, and she looks at me and she goes, "Come on, be serious. That girl can sit down with a canvas and create like really good stuff. She can write. She just doesn't want to. Like, let's get her to want to." And I was like, "Yeah, it's a great idea. Like, I love it." So yeah, that's our
Right.
step
And
in the
she can
process.
even, yeah, and she can even make like cards someday too and really get into that because not everybody can do calligraphy. So that's something to do where you can show people how to make that. And that's even if she ever did want to teach. I mean, even like local art centers or community colleges where you don't have to have a degree, but you could just do that as a class outside of it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I think I asked a version of this, but have you always kind of had that, like, I'm going to prove everybody wrong and figure out how to do this, and I'm going to do it with a smile? And is that like been there? Burning, was there a moment or like a person that said the thing, or was that just like lit you on fire, or what? How did this start?
I don't know if I went at it with thinking I'm going to prove everybody wrong. In fact, I was really afraid. Like I thought, I don't think I can prove the people wrong. But I do have somebody that was a real inspiration for me, and that was we had a student teacher when I was in high school that she told me you can go to college because you know how to study and you're a hard worker. And I can remember thinking she was the first person that ever told me that, and I thought. And then she went on to say that she knew people at college that had disabilities, and I never heard of anything like that. So that was the inspiration. I don't remember that woman's name, but I do remember when I was at college and things got really difficult, I would hear her say, "You can do this. You know how to study. You're a hard worker."
What a game changer to like and to be able to think back on someone who truly
Hmm.
believed in you. It almost sounds like that might have been the first person who you really recognized believed in you in a way, you know?
Right. Other than my parents, that was
Yeah.
somebody who did believe in me, and yeah, that was amazing.
Oh, I love that. It's amazing how we affect people without even knowing sometimes. Because I wonder if
Yes.
I mean, she said the thing to you. I'm sure she wanted to affect you that way. But does she look back now and say, oh, I wonder how Michelle's doing? I wonder if, you know what I mean? Or did
Right.
she just move on with her life? And then here you are with this gift of this like support that helped you get through some things, you know? So it's just, I think it's a really good reminder that everything that we do can affect people in ways that we have no concept of. And that's just a beautiful thing in and of itself.
And I think that's a perfect segue because you also use photography to
Mhm.
affect people around you. What kind of photos do you take, and how long have you been in the photography?
I take pictures of mainly flowers and I do a lot of butterflies and I do a lot of digital. A lot of it's with my phone. And I kind of came into photography really unexpectedly. I can remember in my writing group, I took a picture at prom of a tree at the venue and I had my peers asking me, "Why'd you take a picture of a tree?" And I remember going to my writing group, and there was an older woman in the group that looked at this picture of that tree at the venue and said, "Ah, this shows perspective." And I thought, I'm not an artist. I can't draw a straight line. I cannot color in the lines. I am not an artist. And I put that on the shelf for a number of years. And then my husband and I were at a family wedding, and we were taking pictures at the cemetery, and there was these beautiful angel statues. And I can remember showing them to a friend, and she said, "Wow, where did you take this picture at? These are amazing." And this friend was not into flattery at all. And I thought, well, if she likes them, that they must be really good. So I entered them into a photography show and I got an honorable mention. And that encouraged me to put more stuff into shows and then to start taking more pictures. And then people were telling me, well, you bring out these details that I miss in a flower. And it was just having that encouragement to be able to do that.
Wow. Where do we find your art?
You can find it in my blog, www.michellesmission.com. And I'm also featured in Word Gathering. And I, many years ago, I did Independent and Work Ready. And they made one of my pieces of photography into a journal. And
Wow.
yeah,
Oh, I'm kind of a journal freak. I actually do guided journaling sessions for business owners generally,
nice,
which is such a
nice.
niche thing because not many business owners are thinking about journaling. But what I've found is that, in journaling, you're able to like blossom out of your head essentially and
Yes.
get all of those things onto paper somehow. And the
Uh-huh.
things that people come up with are beautiful. So I love that you've had your photography in an actual journal, um
Mhm.
just to put all that together. I think that's really cool. Yeah,
Thank you.
I didn't really have a question. It was just that.
So you got the blog, you got you've obviously done a lot with your photography and with your writing. What is the overall mission if you had to put it into words?
Well, my mission statement is to encourage, empower, and educate people with and without disabilities because I definitely want to be able to educate people on what they are. And I also want to be able to empower somebody that has a disability to be able to go after their dreams and to do that encouragement so they're able to find what their purpose is in their life as well.
So when I think you kind of brought this up a little bit, but when you're working with kids, are you really teaching like adaptation? I mean, you're really teaching them how to adapt, pivot, learn to their style, what works best for them. That's mostly the structure, right?
Exactly. A lot of times with my students that have a disability diagnosis and qualify for an individualized education plan, we follow by the goals with that. But and sometimes a student might not even have one that qualifies for that, but they might have a 504 plan where they still have something that they need to have we have to know about, but they don't quite qualify for a plan necessarily, an individualized plan. So a lot of times that can be migraines, that can be diabetes. There are things that maybe a student has, but we need to be aware of those things. And seizures are another one of them. But there's also kids that do not have a diagnosis, and you wonder why they don't have services, and it's really easy to identify them in the classroom, but there's things that we can do for all of our students that really are a benefit to everybody, whether they have a disability that's on paper or not. Sometimes that can be reminding students, oh, we have this test coming up. Make sure you go home and you study. Sometimes I can take students aside and we can go over information before a class or just try to reinforce that info. Reading a test aloud to a student, that can be an accommodation that can be offered. But if the teacher does that, or if I have a couple students that I might take and read in another room, that's something that really benefits all of our kids. Sometimes we have students, they need someone to help go through their backpacks because they might be disorganized and we might go through, and sometimes it's even pulling out papers. A student might have a science paper that needs turned in and the kid cannot, or they're working on in class and the child can't find it, so I'll ask, can I go through it, can I help you just go through your backpack? I'll say I can sometimes conjure papers, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but that a lot of those things are just things that everybody can really benefit if they're a kid, just having somebody, having that adult looking out for them and seeing what needs, how best I can serve and support them.
I have a question about all of this. Do you work with people or families like one on one? Have you thought about that? Do you do that?
We don't work as much with parents, but I have had positions where I was working as a therapeutic support staff worker for students with autism at another place right after I graduated from college. In fact, that's where I did my internship. But I also am involved with the disability policy program where we're learning how to go out and be an advocate for other people and ourselves.
I love it.
What sort of disability policies do you think aren't in place that maybe should, or things that you would like, changes you would like to see in that realm?
Right. Well, one of the places that one of my big goals that I would love to see is a more personalized approach to disability services. I think a lot of times we go in and the disability services are very much cookie cutter and they're not really for the individual person. I can remember whenever I was trying to look for a job after community college that I wanted a job working with students, and I was in temporary position, so we were trying to find something that was permanent. And I would be subbing, and I would have to go and not take work that day, and I would get into these meetings, and they would have me do menial tasks such as circle jobs in a newspaper. And a lot of their services were great, but they were provided for people that had high support needs, not somebody that had lower support needs. And they couldn't understand why I wasn't just going to do some of these jobs that were menial. And it just was not, there wasn't anything wrong with them, but it just was not the goal that I wanted to go on. But everybody wanted me on this path and wanted to put me in this box that I just wasn't fitting into. And I just wish that there was this customized approach that people could go in and they could have this where it was tailored to fit the individual needs, not just this one big goal for a group. And I did have a chance to speak to some legislators about putting in schools sign for PA to sign a counselor compact. And this would benefit students with disabilities and without them. Well, we could go in and talk about resources in the future that somebody would be able to use. And I thought that was kind of amazing to try to get more people in that can just advise students on programming and what to do after school.
Wow.
Have you seen a rise in kids, like say with, I know in our districts and around here there isn't, I think I know the answer to this, but yeah, have you seen a rise in kids that do have IEPs and programs, or they are in programs and stuff? And like you said, kids that need them but maybe don't have them. Have you seen over the last decade or so the rise in that number?
I have seen a rise in students that do qualify. In fact, it's just a lot of this is we know a lot more than maybe even when I went to school because I know when
Yeah.
I was in school, we knew about learning disabilities somewhat, and people were diagnosed, but we didn't know anything about autism. We certainly didn't know about trauma-informed care, and we also didn't know about pediatric mental health issues. So I've seen though that we've had a rise in a lot of that, and some of that is due to we know better. We know when a student comes in and they're starting to have symptoms that are this, that could mean something to definitely be checked out. And I've also seen maybe a lot of students that do come in with mental health, and there are factors for that. Sometimes it can be families, just maybe some of our kids have gone through traumas. Sometimes it can just be we're more aware of what to do with that as well. And I think there's just that awareness and people really educating us on things to look for. So I have seen a rise on that and how we help people as well. We still sometimes we might have parents that don't always want to admit that that is happening. So that's why we might have a student that comes in and they don't have those supports.
How do you handle that when you do see that? What are you able to do from your end to bridge any gaps, or are you able?
One of the things I can do is go in, especially if we get a kid that somehow when they were diagnosed, they might have had a diagnosis before, but when they got reevaluated, they didn't have it. And you know that they probably still definitely do have that. I think one of it is going in and explaining that. I remember there was a student that I worked with in the past that did not have what he was diagnosed with according to the physicians, but I would go in and I would explain things and I would work with that child and I would help him. I would say, do you need help with this? Do you understand what the teacher's saying? Do we need to go and maybe talk to him during an advisory period and ask questions? And he would seek me. And the staff started to realize, they're like, oh, yeah, are you his one-on-one? And I'm like, no, I'm not his one-on-one, but I knew what when he was coming in and he wasn't on my caseload, but and also if he needed help, sometimes I would let him, when we had a study hall, I would ask my teacher I was working with, is it okay if the student comes into class? And she was all right with that. And he would come and we would work on assignments together. And I think that helped. And I can also get the kid that could not read, and I could really identify that. Sometimes we would have behavior issues, and this kid was labeled a problem child. And I would go over and I would, whenever they had to take a test, the kid couldn't read. I said, "Can you read?" He goes, "No, I can't." And I would just go over and read the test to him. And we could answer those questions. And I think that's one of those things that we can do. We can go over and really help somebody if we know, but even if we don't, sometimes you can pick up on signs that a kid just doesn't know that. And sometimes it's even going over maybe when a teacher is teaching and you might go over with the kid that might have his head down and you might be like, okay, pick your head up, and but it's having that reinforcement. Sometimes you get they roll their eyes at you, but it's reinforcing, okay, let's sit up. And then sometimes if they run out of the room, rather than going and yelling, we'll go over and say, what is going on? What is happening? And I've had students that have said, well, my mom's in jail or my dad's in rehab. And those are things you don't, yeah, you may not know. But then when they feel safe enough, they can talk to you. Then we can go in and we can listen. And sometimes just listening is really powerful too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to see the signs of it, to recognize it, and to not react. Instead, you give it space to respond instead. And that's such a beautiful thing for a child who most of the time they're scared. It's usually what it is, it's not because they're bad, it's not because they can't, it's just a lot of times it's because they're scared. And to feel safe and to feel secure enough, that's amazing. And especially if they don't really have that safety at home, you might be the only person that they have in their life in the moment who can provide that space for them.
That's amazing. I always say that this show we interview everyday superheroes, and Michelle, you definitely fit the bill for that. Like just your demeanor, how positive you are, how much you can tell that you just want to give back and really help other people, and everything that you've like I said, all of your abilities that you have displayed in life is pretty incredible. What would you tell somebody that is like not feeling super empowered, not feeling like there's a lot of hope, feeling stuck in, man, this disability is really going to hold me back in life? What would you say to that person?
What I would tell that person is things do get better. You may not realize it in that moment, but things do change. Things do get better for, and I would also encourage people to really look at things that they can change and things they can't do. Or, I mean, things that if they can't do something, think about the things that you can do and really focus, make that your focus and try not to worry about those things in life that we just simply cannot change. And sometimes I think too, there's to look for those opportunities that you might not have experienced otherwise. For me, the not driving, I could dwell on that fact, or else I could go out and take a picture of a flower and just see that beauty. And otherwise, I would really miss that in my life. And there's just there's so much beauty, and you may not see it in that moment, but there's definitely some hope with that as well.
Definitely, I definitely love that energy because we're foragers and we like to be like outdoors. And honestly, if I could live somewhere where I like absolutely didn't need a car ever, I would totally do it. I hate cars. They're just money. All they do is break. And I love the aspect of like walking. I probably walk way faster than my family enjoys ever. I'm always way ahead of everybody because of my long legs. But I prefer being outdoors and seeing everything and the bees flying and the monarch butterflies, and it's so much better that way. So I'm totally with you there. Christina, any final questions or um wisdom? Oh,
I mean, I'm still just processing all of it. I just think you're an amazing human,
yes.
and if only we could have a million of you. I just think it would change everything if we had more people like you in the education system, especially.
Yes.
I come from
Oh,
Florida, and our education system isn't exactly the best right now. And I consider her like a mother to me. There's a woman who I'm actually parked. I live in a bus full time. It's a bus that I converted myself. I am converting. It's not done. But I'm parked on their property, and she worked with, I mean, she's in her 70s now and she's definitely retired, but throughout her whole career she worked with children that had different types of disabilities or challenges. It wasn't just disabilities, there were just challenges that these kids had. And that was a system she worked in forever. And the stories that she tells, I swear she's a superhero. And so are you.
yes.
It really is amazing um, to meet somebody who has that kind of impact at such an early age with people who really, really, really need that. So I mean, that's what I got. I just thank you for being that human.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
And you
Thank you
might
so
have me in your inbox as we homeschool my daughter this year. I'm like, Michelle, can you give me some support or words of wisdom, just your positivity? I've definitely enjoyed this conversation. You've given me things to like think about and bring back in the ways that we approach our daughter when we're trying to get her to learn certain things. So I appreciate this conversation 100% for that alone. It's been amazing connecting with you. You actually didn't know this. I don't think you neither did, Christina, and I don't even know if I did. But this is the last episode of this podcast on this YouTube channel. We're actually gearing up and switching gears. We're kind of going in different directions, and we're going to be back in the same direction on Christina's page. Look forward to Christina and Brandon's ADHD entrepreneur energy to be full on board in some sort of style over there soon. And here on the Evergreen Foundation's YouTube page, I am going to be launching a holistic health podcast that will be starting next week. So look, I'm not going to give you any more details. You guys got to find me in other ways, Facebook, other places. You'll hear details, and we'll see you next week. Until then, Michelle, thank you so much. I'm Brandon DeKramer.
And I'm Christina Joy.
I'll see you soon in
Yeah.
multiple spots. See you later,
Thank
guys.
you.